family needs something more than just prayer. I mean, prayer is crucial, but I have to have order and structure and vision and unity.
You have these systems that work for business. Why would we do that in the home?
And I have the death alarm that goes off at 9 p.m. because if their technology is not downstairs by 9 p.m. in the place that we designate, they're dead meat.
I'm never going to regret not giving my kids greater access to the internet.
If you give a kid an inch, he's going to take a mile. So you have to be...
By the way, my name is Joe McClane. I host a radio program called A Catholic Take, where we look at the world through a Catholic lens. I'd love for you to hang out with us. If you like it, give it a thumbs up and let us know what you think in the comments below.
Hey, do you have chaos in your family? I know most of us do. Let's just be honest. We tend to be very chaotic families, especially big families. But today, especially, we got this cell phone devices. Everybody's at the table, or if they're at the table at all, with the phone in their face. And I've been guilty of that too myself. And you wonder, how do you stop the family drama? How do you get everybody in the family to be on the same page? Very interestingly, Conor Gallagher, who is the CEO of Tan Books, as well as other companies, he's written a book called Well-Ordered Family. This is fascinating to me because I've studied business systems like EOS, for instance. They're very great about helping your business to grow and become more efficient, put the right person in the right seat, just, get the team all working towards the same goals, work out problems, solutions, all of those things. It makes sense in the office. Does it make sense in the home? That's one of the big questions, and he actually addresses that in the book, and he joins us this morning. Conor Gallagher, good morning to you. Thank you for your time.
Hey, man, thanks for having me, Joe. And you just summarized the whole thing really well. So you got this down pat already.
It's good talking to you. Have a great day. No, I think I am fascinated by this. It is an interesting concept, but I want to start with what you said here on page 11. It says, my dad always says, God may feed the birds, but he don't put the food in the nest. That's his folksy way of saying God will indeed bless you, but he expects you to do all within your power to build the foundation upon which his grace will flow. I think that is a great place to start in the conversation because it kind of reminded me of what St. Augustine said. Do everything as though it all depends upon you, but pray as though it all depends upon God. So I guess let's start there. What does God expect us to do when it comes to ordering our families?
Yeah, that's awesome. And I quote that all the time, that do everything like it depends on you and pray like it depends on God. Also the Benedictine motto, ora et labora, it all comes together. All of this, Joe, is centering around the idea that grace builds on nature. Thomas Aquinas said that, right? So it's, we can pray, we can have the devotional lives of the church. And of course, Tan, perhaps better than anybody else, provides those resources. But what I have found in my own family life is I can't just be a believing Catholic and pray with my kids. Like the universe requires a natural order, the natural virtues the church has always said, we have to have those things in place first, and then grace flows more freely. So I think that there is a natural law, so to speak, to business, to every activity in life where the people are striving for excellence. And so they have to have vision. They have to have unity with their teammates or whoever they're working with. They have to have systems and metrics of, measuring elements of success in different ways. All of these elements are present, whether you're in the military, whether you're an investor on Wall Street, whether you're an athlete trying to get to the Olympics, or whether you're a business guy. And it dawned on me, Joe, over the years, I said, look, why do I apply these principles to every business I'm associated with, every board that I sit on, and I don't apply it to home? And so I said, I have to start applying these same mindsets to home because my family needs something more than just prayer. I mean, prayer is crucial, but I have to have order and structure and vision and unity for my family to achieve excellence. And so that was kind of the birth of Well-Ordered Family, is saying, let's bring some of these principles home, because like you said, if we don't have the order, the foundation, the natural things that God put into the universe, natural doesn't mean outside of God. It just means that it's not necessarily from sacramental grace or some other kind of grace flowing. So order, structure, vision, unity, systems, metrics, relationships, and discernment. That's my 6-part recipe, so to speak, to being well ordered and embracing the natural order that God has ordained so that grace can then flow more freely.
Well, I think there could be some pushback here. I can already hear the thoughts of maybe somebody listening to us right now. Conor, you've got 16 kids. You have a small army. Okay, you run a little city, Conor. So you're going to need systems, but my family's not as big. I can also, turning to page 102 here, I thought this was also quite funny. You say, so why don't we naturally do this? A contrarian might respond, family isn't business. Spouses aren't colleagues. Children aren't employees. This is true, but it's also a lazy out, of course. Families aren't businesses. This is simply an analogy, but it's a powerful comparison. So why should we treat our families as though they are employees and you have these systems that work for business? Why would we do that in the home if, in fact, it seems impersonal?
Yeah, you're right. And here's the thing is, I would hope that business is not impersonal. Like, the people I work with are extraordinarily important to me. Now, of course, every person in my family comes before every person at work. I mean, the analogy only goes so far, right? But it works. Like, when you use these business principles, a business, Joe, is a group of people coming together to try to accomplish a certain goal. And that's what a family is. It's just the goal is different and the people are different. It's the same principles. So yeah, I can't just like fire my kid like I can an employee, but I have fired kids out of family meetings and be like, you know what? The teenager's toxic today. You got to get out of our family meeting. You're tanking this whole thing. So take a hike, buddy. So, there are analogies even in those kinds of things. So I put that in the book because I don't want people to throw the baby out with the bathwater and say, hey, this doesn't work. It's not a business. No, it does work. It's just more than a business. But actually, when you look at the core constituents of a business, family really fits that. It's just far more than that. It's like your marriage really is a partnership. But of course, it's sacramental and it's 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times more than a partnership. But it still has those constituent elements, and you need to respect those so that the grace flows more freely.
I really liked how you used the Quo Vadis story. I was just there back in November. Absolutely one of my favorite spots in Rome is to go to the Appian Way and just sort of stand there where our Lord meets St. Peter as he's heading in and St. Peter's heading out. It's such a fascinating story. But you use it to really illustrate how we need to have focus. And you even say, you talk about this, about core virtues on page 33. The business world speaks about core values. In the realm of family, I propose embracing core virtues rather than core values. Can you speak to that a little bit? Like, how do we find what these core virtues are supposed to be? How does your system come to what those virtues are? Do we list them? Do we put them on a whiteboard in the family kitchen so everybody can see them? How do we do that?
Yeah, it's awesome. So values are a little bit more subjective. And of course, that's what the corporate world talks about. So I like saying virtues because you might value Shakespeare more than me, and that's fine. That's a subjective thing. But virtues are a little bit more objective. So first of all, when I talk about core virtues, I'm not necessarily just limiting the virtues to the things you find in the catechism, like faith, hope, and charity or something. For example, in our family, one of our quote unquote core virtues is no scorekeeping. And what I mean by that is, the kids have to pitch in and do chores for other kids because the chore chart fails sometimes and kids are gone. They can't do their chores. Last night, my kids went to some youth group thing at church. And so the little guys had to kick in and do the dishes and the countertops for the older kids. But they can't keep score and like tomorrow night say, oh, you have to do it for me instead, because I hate being the referee. If you got kids, man, you hate being referee between kids. So no scorekeeping is just a simple little way of really showing it's humility and meekness and charity. Like, it is those things. But so I like calling core virtue sometimes something very informal, like no scorekeeping, to keep peace in the house. So the core virtues are actually written down. I have a process, a tool that helps you find what are the attributes that you and your spouse and your kids want to live by. What are the key characteristics that you want the members of your family to have on a day-by-day basis that maybe you're lacking and you need to focus on more? Don't pick 20. Don't pick 10. Pick 3 or 4 And then you write it on what I call the family master plan, which is a 1-page summary of all the vision stuff. And you have a spot right there, core virtues. And then what you do, Joe, is you use that as like a little shortcut way when kids violate it, when, myself, I violate it all the darn time. You point to it and say, you know what? We were just scorekeeping. You know what? We lacked charitable interactions. You know what? We lacked humility. And you're pointing to it and saying, these 3 or 4 little core virtues are kind of our guideposts throughout the day. It's meant to be very, very practical. And if you hang it on the wall, you put it on the master plan and you hang it on the wall somewhere, maybe in the kitchen or the mudroom or the pantry. Ours is in our pantry. But you're able to say, you know what? We just violated that core virtue. And you change it over time. But they're meant to be little signs to you throughout the day. I need to keep these things in check.
What's the hardest part? What's the biggest roadblock for families to start down this path of creating these systems, using these systems to get rid of the family drama?
No, great question. And I think it's just like going at it alone. This book, I'm so impressed. I saw the picture there of how much you've flagged a book and you've gone through it and you highlighted, man. So way to go on preparation, dude. That's awesome. I'm flattered and I thank you. But I think this book is so dense in a sense, people need to have coaching that kind of goes through it. So we created a coaching service that can really help you implement this slowly over time. This is like drinking from a fire hose. And I don't want anybody to try to implement all the principles of the 6-part system into their family at once. What they need to do, go to our website, do a free consultation with us. First of all, Joe, there's a little free family assessment test we created. Like, assess your family. Everyone likes assessment tests. So you can take that little assessment test, see how your family's doing on vision versus unity versus systems and metrics, whatever. And it's fun. And then you can do a consultation with one of our coaches and see how you're doing. And we might be able to help you walk through it. And if we can, great. If we can't, then we'll pray for you and hopefully you'll do fine on your own.
What you said to talk about the technology in the home, because that's a big deal these days. Everyone seems to have phones. Now, we've limited that in our family. I think many families have to do that. But you say on page 117, what is the technological environment in which your family lives? Think about the impact of the digital world on your family: smartphones, internet, social media, video streaming services, and so on. It is vitally important to assess how these factors are affecting your family, particularly your children, and especially your teenagers. The funny thing that reminded me of was when I give talks, I have many times said over the years, there's things that I will never regret while on my deathbed. I'm never going to regret not giving my kids greater access to the internet. Sorry, just not going to do it. Okay. Oh, they're supposed to have iPads and iPhones. Oh, darn. I just won't be regretting these things on my deathbed. I will regret if I didn't lead them to greater virtue and holiness, but I'm not going to regret the technological keeping up with the Joneses things because Billy has an iPhone, so must they. I don't care. I don't get to parent Billy, unfortunately. But you see what I'm saying? Like, this is the environment we're dealing with. The peer pressure that our kids are under today is very high. It was high for you and me when we were kids, but it was a different kind of a thing. Today, I want to say that the technology has increased tenfold the pressure that they are facing because of social media and all the rest. How can parents limit that stuff? If the cat is out of the bag, can they take the phone away? What do they do?
Yeah. So first of all, I always like to say this. I want parents to understand this critical point of efficiency management philosophy that the corporate world has taken on. There was a guy named W. Edward Demings who really helped create Toyota into what it is. And he said, you have a system for everything, whether you realize it or not. And here's the point. If you think, if a parent's listening, say, well, we don't really have a technology system. We don't really have a digital policy. My point to them is this. Yes, you do. The system you have is entrust your children to the internet and see what happens. Like, that's your system. Yeah. So once you realize that you have a system, it just stinks, then you actually want to make improvements on it. So it's like a bigger leap for people to go from no system to a system than from realizing their system stinks to making improvement. So Parents, you have a digital policy for your little kids, for yourselves, and for your teenagers. You might just not realize it. And if you cannot articulate your system with clarity for the technology particularly, then your system stinks. And I'm just here to tell you that. It stinks if you can't tell me what it is with precision. So the main thing I want to push to people is that you have to get really specific with technology. I'm not telling you what games your kids should be able to play, how old they should be when they get cell phones. That's your call. But I do provide the questions that you really do need to ask and answer. And that's on my digital policy builder. You can get it on wilderfamily.com for free. But who are they allowed to talk to through social media? What platforms, what gaming, when, where? Can they have technology in their bedroom? Does the door have to be open or can it be closed? Do they have to bring technology downstairs in the evening? Like for us, Joe, the last thing you always hear me say every single night is, where's the tech? Where's the tech? Because all the teenagers have to bring everything downstairs by 9:00. And they're not supposed to have it in behind closed doors anyway. But they do schoolwork and they have, classes and all that kind of stuff. And there's some level of communication with friends allowed. But on my cell phone, you can set little alarms. And I have the death alarm that goes off at 9 p.m. because if their technology is not downstairs by 9 p.m. in the place that we designate, they're dead meat. So, you have to do things like this. So please, parents, fill out the tool, the digital policy, and start giving your teenagers tremendous clarity. The conflict, Joe, doesn't come from just teenagers breaking the rules. The conflict usually comes from a lack of clarity of exactly what the rules are. If you give a kid an inch, he's going to take a mile. So you have to be ruthlessly specific when it comes to technology. Otherwise, the demons of the internet will just seep through.
Yeah, amen to that. Let's talk about those meetings, those family meetings. This is a big part of the system in your book, of course. How do you get the kids on board with this? I mean, nobody likes meetings at the office. How are we going to like meetings at the house?
First of all, the meetings, I have a number of agendas that go along with the meetings. First of all, if you follow an agenda and like mom or dad is holding up the piece of paper in the agenda and saying, okay, kids, we're following this. Then what it does is it like objectifies it as opposed to like mom and dad are just in charge and telling me to do everything. Meetings stink with the family when you use them for discipline. And I draw a distinction. I don't think the family meetings that I have in my book are the time and place for discipline or being overly critical. No. Discipline the hell out of your kids, at another time, but not in these meetings, because these meetings have specific points. We're trying to track our family goals. We're trying to find out what's coming up in the coming week. What are the threats? What are the opportunities of this week? What are the logistics of this week? On our quarterly meetings, Joe, it's what are we trying to accomplish in the next 90 days? What are the metrics that we want to track? How did we do last quarter? Did we accomplish our goals from last quarter, et cetera, just like business meetings do? But imagine an executive in a business setting and he's got his team around and he decides to just discipline one of his managers in front of everybody else. That dude's going to really hate meetings. No, go behind closed doors and do that with your employee later on. Close the door and then let them have it, but not in front of people. So I think it's kind of the same thing with families. So don't use family meetings for discipline. But I also have a tip. I think it's on page like 80 something, 82, 83, because I reference it all the time. For teenage kids, little kids love the family meetings, Joe. It's the teenagers that show up kind of sassy and, skeptical. So there's tips. Number one, give your teenager a heads up. We're going to have a meeting in a week, son. And I need you to show up in a good attitude to be a good influence on your kid. Number two, give them a task. Hey, I want you to come thinking about what our goals for the next 90 days should be. Or how do you think we should amend our digital policy? Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to go with what they say, but bring them in. Treat them like an adult. Teenagers have nasty attitudes because they're stuck between kids and adults. Number three, pray for your kids long before the meeting happens. And number four, pray for them in your brain during the meeting that the good teenager shows up and that he stays there. And I'm telling you, if you do those four things, you're going to 90% chance the good teenager is going to show up and it's going to be a productive meeting.
Wow, the good teenager. That's awesome. Praise be to God. We're almost out of time, and I wanted to get you to give us some tips about being grandparents. How do we help our adult children? I mean, one tip would just maybe gift the book to them and then see if that plants a seed. But what would you say?
My greatest Christmas gift ever was about 6 months ago or 9 months ago when I got the ultrasound of my first grandchild on my coffee mug.
Wow.
So this is my favorite. Yeah, so
That's
I got
amazing.
2 grandkids now. It is amazing. But
We're down to seconds.
Parents, tell your children how you failed as a parent and encourage them to do better than you did. That's the best thing grandparents can do.
I do that all the time. Hey, you don't want to turn out like me, kid. All right, so get your act together. Praise be to God. Hey, Conor Gallagher, thank you for your time today. Really appreciate it. Enjoyed the book. Highly recommend the book. Check them out, tanbooks.com, tanbooks.com, or maybe even better would be to visit wellorderedfamily.com. You can not only link to the book there, but you can get all those other resources and maybe get some help too, wellorderedfamily.com.
Did you like that video? It's okay. You can admit it. It's perfectly fine. Hey, we cover the big stories of our day, from inside the church to outside the church to all points in between, and we do it from a Catholic perspective. It's called A Catholic Take. It's a radio program Monday through Friday. We live stream it right here on this channel, by the way, so make sure to subscribe, like, and share. We would be very grateful to you. And don't forget, you're going to want to watch this video right here because you don't want to miss anything.